come from the surrounding areas, perhaps you want that bit of land that's adjacent to yours. Perhaps you're here to seek out positions for your children, perhaps you want your sons to be pages or your daughters to have a good marriage even. I don't know how old they are, but you'd search for a good marriage at about age 11 or 12 or thereabouts. So, or perhaps a position in the Queen's household. Perhaps you want some money. Whatever it is, you've come to court, if for no other reason than just to pay your reverences to your sovereign, because he will then recognise your face. You might do quite well. But I am one of such who came to court at quite an early age. I'll introduce myself. I'm dressed today as Lady Anne Herbert, from about the mid-40s, by the time she's doing quite well. And I can tell you why she's doing well, because if you haven't heard of Lady Anne Herbert, she's the wife of William Herbert, Sir William Herbert, but her maiden name is Anne Parr. So she does quite well. If you've got an older sister, I would recommend that you marry her off to a king. Anne Parr comes to court to serve the Queen Jane Seymour. So just a simple lady in waiting, quite a good family. Her sister is Lady Latimer. Catherine Parr is by this time Lady Latimer, and her brother is Sir William Parr. So they're doing quite well. But she's nothing much particularly. She marries an esquire of the body, Master William Herbert, and they remain so for quite some time. She does, however, they both keep their heads down at court, and this is my first and most important piece of advice for you. If you're at the court of King Henry VIII, keep your head down. Don't side too obviously with either faction, or not even either. There might be more than two factions at court. You might have a clash of families, the Seymours, the Howards, the Boleyns. They're all here at court, and these great factions are usually in conflict with each other. So one thing the Herberts managed to do is keep their head down very quietly until Anne Parr's older sister, Lady Latimer, Catherine Parr, is Queen of England. She's Henry VIII's sixth wife, and at that point, it just explodes. They become Sir William and Lady Anne Herbert. Lady Anne becomes a chief lady of the bedchamber, mistress of the jewel house, and they continue very happily in quite a wealthy way and into the Elizabethan era. So they certainly are examples of how to get on at court. But we shall move on into the Great Hall. While we're standing here in Clock Court, however, I mentioned that the palace was the property of Lord Cardinal Thomas Wolsey before, and he began the building work that turned it into such a great palace. He had two real reasons for building a great country house. The first being, of course, that he's a very important man. He's a cardinal, he's the papal legate, he's Archbishop of York, he's the Lord Chancellor, he's Henry VIII's closest advisor and friend. So he has every right to build himself a great big country house, and one to which he can invite the king to come and stay. And that's the second and more important reason. He has to be able to invite Henry to come and stay. And if he's going to do that, if you're going to do that in your own homes, you'll need to build a suite of rooms for Henry VIII. And in Wolsey's day, although the facades have changed somewhat, Henry's rooms would have been there, to my left, on the first floor, running along this side of Clock Court. And this was actually called Fountain Court at the time. It had a drinking fountain in it. You also need to provide rooms for his queen. His queen is Queen Catherine of Aragon. She had rooms there up on the second floor, and they have a daughter, Princess Mary. She had rooms on the ground floor. And it says something about the scale of their households that they couldn't all visit at once. The mother and father could come together, the daughter could come on her own, they couldn't all visit at the same time. On a winter's day, Catherine and Henry between them would accumulate and bring with them some 1,000 members of their household. So the other thing you will need to do and build and construct in your own homes, if you want to ask King Henry to come and stay, are lodgings for the visitors and guests. And you would all be lodged here in the palace, if you were quite well off, in Base Court, which you'll have seen as you entered under the West Gate. That was built as lodgings, double lodgings for anybody that King Henry and Queen Catherine would be bringing with them or accumulating. So you'd wake up in the morning, the first sight you would see would be Base Court. If you were particularly well off, you'd have rooms in the south side, you'd have your own privy, so essentially en suite, and you would immediately get up and go about your daily business, which might simply be waiting upon your monarch. So the first place to head is into the Great Hall. As the builders are at work, I'm afraid we will have to journey this day through the kitchen corridors, and I do apologise for that. You may have to pass by people of slightly lower class than yourself. But never fear, if you can manage it for just a few moments, and it does give me palpitations, but we shall head straight up into the Great Hall. We must walk round the kitchen passageway. So let's set off.